Sun cast a shadow, a digital line is coming over the mountain and over your mind. Double down on your Bitcoin, hang on for the ride. We're moving into the future, one block at a time. We're moving into the future, one block at a time.
Welcome to Once Upon a Coin, documenting the ongoing history of blockchain and cryptocurrency. And as always, I'm your storyteller, Jason Cassidy. Today's story is about domain names, crypto domain names to be specific. And this is likely one of the least well understood topics in all of crypto that I've seen in my 10 years in the space, which is interesting because this sector has actually helped propel crypto into the mainstream, and while doing so, it's made some people millions and millions of dollars. This is a story of crypto domain names. By now, most people can appreciate the impact that blockchain and cryptocurrency have had when it comes to revolutionizing both money and finance. But what most people do not understand yet is the power that blockchain has had with online assets like domain names. And to tell this story properly, we really do have to go all the way back to the very beginning. Nowadays, we use the internet by going to our favorite website, and companies will pay big bucks for just the right name. In fact, most websites today are represented by a .com domain name, so despite the plethora of other choices out there you can choose from with domain extensions, the .com still remains king. Pretty straightforward stuff, right? Well, back in the day, you actually had to visit a website by going to its IP address opposed to a human-readable name. When DNS was first introduced, standing for Domain Name System, the internet finally had a reliable way of taking information that humans could understand and converting that into something that web browsers could translate into an IP address.
The internet is actually a massive collection of computers that are connected to one another by underground wires and identified by a series of numbers known as IP addresses. While handy when it comes to identifying where specific computers are on the network, these numbers were not conducive to everyday web browsing. Just imagine a phone book, if you will, without any names in it. And please, don't ask us what a phone book is. You'll make us all feel old. In order to make searching the web easier for the public, the Domain Name System, or DNS, was born. Now, names can be mapped to specific IP addresses to deliver people to their content far more easily.
And this naturally helped spur more user adoption, which in turn led to businesses and consumers moving online to take part in the new digital economy. As the years went by, more and more people eventually did move their habits online, whether that was for education, shopping, or just socializing with friends. And pretty soon, seemingly everyone was online and having a good time. And these good times led to some pretty crazy speculation with investors. All this hype around the coming revolution in e-commerce created an environment where, with the US stock markets, more and more companies were debuting as internet startups, and the valuations they were receiving were surreal. The poster boy for this time period is undoubtedly Pets.com, a San Francisco-based startup that debuted in 1998. Their secret sauce was to allow people to order pet supplies online and then find a way to have them shipped to the purchaser. So basically, Pets.com was trying to be the Amazon of pets before Amazon was actually a thing itself. This didn't deter investors, though, who poured copious amounts of capital into the company. In fact, Amazon themselves actually invested in Pets.com. However, just a few short years later, despite incredible publicity like the Macy Thanksgiving Day Parade in 1999 and Super Bowl advertisements in the year 2000, Pets.com went out of business. They were simply too early to market with this concept, as people at the turn of the century still greatly preferred shopping at brick and mortar stores versus online, despite what venture capitalists were telling people on Bloomberg and CNBC. Despite the setback that the dot-com bubble introduced, the theory behind e-commerce was still pretty sound. Build a great product, create an easy-to-use website to showcase it, and have a reliable supply chain in the background to bring it all together. And the concept of having a great domain name to go along with all this stuff was basically embraced. So as time went by, humanity slowly but surely began to fulfill the promise of what an online economy could one day be. And this in turn led to domain names starting to get a lot more attention. By the early 2000s, there was an entire industry forming around them. Large entities like GoDaddy started to pop up to support the growing needs of the internet. People wanted to buy domain names, create websites, and of course, have someone to host them. Some big domain sales began to take place, and this showed brands that the internet wasn't just a fad, it was in fact the future. And if they wanted to have a place in the future, they were going to need to have a really good domain name and an active online presence to match it. Each year, more and more domain sales kept happening, and the amount that they were selling for kept growing as well. In fact, it got to the point around the late 2000s where most internet-savvy people knew by now that having a good domain name was just smart business. This is also around the time that Satoshi Nakamoto was unveiling his masterpiece to the world via Bitcoin and the Bitcoin white paper. He did this via the bitcoin.org domain name, which was registered on August 18th, 2008. And bitcoin.org would go on to be one of the most visited resources for Bitcoin in the years to follow. A few years later, the bitcointalk.org domain name took center stage, and it would later on become the most visited online resource for cryptocurrency in the entire world. The Bitcoin Talk forum story is one that deserves its own episode, and that's why here at Once Upon a Coin, that's exactly what we've done. And I highly encourage you to go ahead and take a look at that episode because the forum is responsible for some of the biggest moments in crypto history. This is the beginning of the crypto domain name era, albeit still in a centralized form, for now. From here, we start to see crypto domain names popping up and turning into online watering holes to service the admittedly small number of true believers back then. One such example of this is the bitcoin.com domain name, which in 2014 was acquired for an undisclosed amount by Bitcoin Jesus himself, Roger Ver, and he's since gone on to build an entire business around the bitcoin.com domain name. The big sales just kept on coming. In 2018, Monaco purchased the crypto.com domain name for a rumored $12 million US, and then unsurprisingly, rebranded themselves to, wait for it, crypto.com. The previous owner, Matt Blaze, had held the domain since 1993 and had turned down numerous lucrative offers over the years. So whatever the number was here that got the deal done finally with crypto.com, it was probably a ton of cash. Other examples of crypto domain names making big waves. Tokens.com sold for $500,000 US. CryptoWorld.com sold for $195,000 US. ETH.com sold for $2 million US. BitcoinWallet.com sold for $250,000 US, and NFT.com sold for $2 million US as well. There's also numerous examples out there of companies that acquired great crypto domain names without making much noise at the time, too. In 2017, the domain name Ethereum.com was acquired by a blockchain investment firm, and not long after that, the blockchain.com domain name was snapped up by a blockchain service provider. In 2019, DeFi.com was acquired by a decentralized finance platform. In 2021, Coinbase.com was listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange as part of Coinbase's initial public offering, or IPO. And that same year, the domain name Solana.com was acquired by the Solana blockchain platform. I can personally attest to the power of having a great crypto domain name for your business, as over the years I have owned, given away, and sold several myself. As you can see, the acquisition and use of crypto domain names has become a pretty big part of the overall crypto ecosystem, and that's because it allows both individuals and companies to go ahead and establish their brands and presence online. But this is crypto, and the ethos of the blockchain is decentralization. This is actually where the second part of our story begins, because of all the things that blockchain tech has done to liberate humanity, one of the most important may just be getting us out of the centrally controlled system of domain names. Let me explain. ICANN, or the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, is a nonprofit group that oversees the assignment of both IP addresses and domain names. You see, just like the case with most other centralized assets, with domain names, you don't really own them. It can be shut down, suspended, or taken away depending on what content you have on the site and who you end up pissing off in the process. There are countless examples of this happening over the years, and people basically just accepted it out of lack of a better option. So as usual, blockchain has a solution. The decentralization of domain names was formally introduced to us via Namecoin back in 2011 with its .bit extension. For a small bit of Namecoin, you could go ahead and register any .bit domain name you wanted that was not already taken. Renewing a .bit domain name entailed paying for its renewal fee once a year, and you could pay for this fee or renew any domain name right from within the Namecoin wallet. Namecoin, being the very first altcoin in history after Bitcoin, is also considered to produce the very first NFTs or non-fungible tokens, with their advent of the .bit domain name. While this innovation definitely scores points on the cool factor alone, it was an idea that was still years ahead of its time. Not many people had heard about Bitcoin back then, and to set up a .bit domain took some work on your part, and it would take even more work on the part of your visitors if they wanted to actually see the site. And thus, no one really took .bit or the idea of decentralized domain names too seriously at first, not even hardcore cryptonauts. Years went by in the blockchain-based domain world before any real traction began to take place, and when it did, it was due to Ethereum. Ethereum has been the undisputed leader in most blockchain applications, helping popularize smart contracts, DeFi, metaverse, ICOs, stablecoins, token standards like ERC20, and the list just goes on and on and on. Ethereum created the ENS, Ethereum naming system, which allows any user to register a .eth address in much the same way that .bit works. For a little bit of Ether, you can register any .eth name that hasn't already been snatched up. Due to the massive network effect that Ethereum enjoys, plus the fact that many years of education and awareness had taken place since Namecoin and .bit were first introduced years ago, this time around, people started to take the idea of decentralized domain names seriously. There's a lot of stuff you can do with an ENS name, and thus a lot of good reasons why you may want to own one yourself.
So the ENS service itself has done significant things, and what will be unlocked in the future will dwarf anything we've seen to date through using it as a Twitter or Discord handle, a website directory, a payment mechanism, a very easy address to remember and have people pay you as far as your customers or users. Nothing has come close to the significance and the community built around ENS. In the coming years, I believe you'll see some of the Fortune 500 companies going out and trying to acquire their ENS because it is really their new domain.
Beyond the functionality and value proposition that ENS domains hold by virtue of being decentralized, they also happen to be fetching a lot of money these days. Some big sales have gone down, such as Paradigm.eth for $1.5 million, 000.eth for $315,000, and finally ABC.eth sold for a cool $250,000. Ethereum isn't the only blockchain offering decentralized domain names either. Platforms like Emmercoin have been offering the .coin extension for years now via the Emmer DNS. You can register domain names on Solana, Tezos, Proton, and a number of other popular networks. You can also check out blockchain naming services like Unstoppable Domains and get yourself a .nft, .crypto, or .bitcoin domain name if you're feeling particularly adventurous. This is the future, the ability to hold your own domain name in your digital wallet securely without any third parties or centralized systems involved. Big brands are reading the writing on the wall and moving to secure their blockchain presence. Gucci, Puma, and Budweiser are just a couple of companies that have recently purchased their own .eth domains. And as someone who's owned their fair share of both centralized and decentralized domain names in the past, my sage advice is that you seriously start taking a look at acquiring your own decentralized domain name. Simply put, if you believe that crypto is going to continue to change the world for the better, then you really do want to own at least one blockchain-based domain name. Given how much you can do with them, it just makes sense to have the Swiss Army knife of digital assets in your portfolio. I hope you enjoyed today's stroll down memory lane. Until next time, have fun and enjoy life, my friends. I'll be back soon with another incredible story to tell you.